I want to start today with a genuinely surprising idea, one that kind of flies in the face of every survival instinct we have.
Okay.
You might believe that you're protecting yourself by building up these emotional walls, but closing your heart, it actually causes more pain than leaving it open.
That's the whole paradox, isn't it? A listener shared a whole stack of sources with us, all from this really deep conversation on emotional growth and vulnerability.
And breaking free from these really deep-seated patterns.
Exactly. And they give this powerful blueprint for moving past fear, past self-sabotage, and into a life with, genuine freedom.
Absolutely. So our mission today in this deep dive is to unpack all this. We're going to get into why we're so terrified of love, how we unconsciously manipulate ourselves, and what radical steps,
Like running straight toward heartbreak.
right, how those counterintuitive steps actually lead to self-acceptance.
And we'll synthesize these ideas so you can walk away understanding the practical difference between resistance, which this material calls absolute hell, and acceptance.
Which is the direct path to freedom.
Yeah.
So let's dive right into that core conflict. We instinctively close our hearts. Our wiring tells us, if I open up, I'm going to get hurt.
I'll be taken advantage of, yeah.
But the wisdom here is that the protection mechanism is the source of the suffering.
When your heart starts to close down, that physiological feeling is immediately painful. It's a contraction, a resistance. And what's fascinating is that there's not a tremendous amount of real-world evidence to justify this level of fear.
What do you mean by that? I mean, we've all been hurt before.
Of course. But the source material asks us to look at truly open-hearted people. Think of someone like Gandhi or Martin Luther King Jr., or even just the most loving, giving mother you can imagine.
Okay.
Were they just automatically taken advantage of simply because they were open? Not really. They faced conflict, sure, but that direct link between openness and being destroyed, it's just not as strong as our anxious brain thinks it is.
So the fear is really disproportionate to the actual danger. But then why are we so terrified of love when it actually shows up?
Well, because for most of us, love didn't arrive pure. It came with a toxic addition early in life. The term they use is toxic entrainment.
Toxic entrainment.
Yeah. Maybe for you, love was mixed with guilt or criticism or maybe smothering or obligation. So if your first experiences of affection had those painful things attached.
Your nervous system just learns that love equals criticism or love equals pain.
Exactly. And that explains this universal dynamic where we sabotage the very things we want most. The sources point to jealousy and criticism as the big examples.
Right.
We crave connection, but when it arrives in a pure form, we feel this compulsion to criticize it, to push it away, to make the other person feel wrong for offering it.
We do it to partners, to friends.
And crucially, we do it to ourselves when we try any kind of self-love. We literally manufacture the criticism we were taught to expect. Moving past those patterns, it takes more than just understanding it intellectually. You need a real-world test. It's one thing to practice being open in a safe container, like a therapy retreat or something.
Sure, where everyone is on the same page.
But the outside world is, as the sources say, filled with hands, potential triggers, conflicts, challenges.
That's where depatterning comes in. I love that visual. It's like a mistreated puppy who's learned to cower every time a hand is raised.
Yes. And that puppy needs slow, repetitive proof that the hand is now there to give a pat, not a hit. The nervous system has to rewrite that entire connection.
And that transition from the safe space back to the real world,
Yeah.
it can be incredibly intense.
Oh, there's this brilliant anecdote about the vulnerability hangover.
Right.
This person had just left a calm, peaceful Thai massage place after doing some really deep inner work. They felt so raw that when they stepped outside into the busy world,
That was just too much.
they had to literally stop and just stand there because the shock of the shift was so intense.
And that shock just highlights how much we rely on our old negative patterns for kind of a weird sense of stability.
We hold on to them in three main ways that lead to this relentless self-sabotage. The first one is attracting it. If your deep pattern is feeling criticized, you will unconsciously be attracted to critical bosses or partners or friends.
You're just seeking out people who mirror that old dynamic because it's predictable.
Predictable discomfort feels safer than unpredictable freedom.
Wow. Okay, what's the second one?
The second is manipulating it. So if the people around you aren't criticizing you enough to satisfy the pattern, you'll actually fish for it.
You'll act needy or create some small chaos to get them to push you away.
You're essentially baiting them into proving your old story right.
And the third way.
This is the most common one, proving it, or what they call mapping. This is where you make huge personal meaning out of a totally neutral statement.
Like a friend says, you're not parked straight.
Exactly. And instead of hearing that, you hear, I'm a terrible parker, I'm incompetent, I can't do anything right. You just manufacture the hurt where none was intended.
It's amazing that losing this negative blueprint can actually cause a kind of temporary paralysis.
It absolutely can. When the patterns stop working, you lose your whole instruction manual for how to be in the world. The source tells this story, it's almost funny, of people calling from Whole Foods,
No way.
saying, I don't know what to buy anymore. They've lost the internal rules that guided every single decision. They have to find a new, authentic one.
That brings us to a huge point of resistance, doesn't it? The anxiety in those song lyrics really captures it. Why love anything at all if the higher I fly is the farther I fall?
The assumption is that heartbreak is the worst possible outcome.
Right.
And this is where the sources make their boldest, most counterintuitive claim. They say the opposite is true.
That heartbreak's something to look forward to.
Yes, because every single time your heart breaks open, your capacity to love and experience life actually increases.
Okay, I get that conceptually,
Yeah.
but that sounds, I don't know, like a recipe for disaster to a lot of people.
Uh.
We're wired to avoid pain.
And that's the key distinction. We're not talking about seeking out destructive relationships.
Yeah.
We're talking about accepting the unavoidable grief and loss that comes with being open to life.
Oh.
The sources say that trauma is what happens when people avoid the pain of heartbreak, when they shut down, numb out, and resist the feeling.
So resistance is what creates the trauma.
Precisely. We are wired to find peace by going into the pain, not around it. When that pain, the grief, the loss is accepted and even loved, it becomes the most direct path to freedom.
And when it's avoided,
That's what they call absolute hell.
there's that powerful analogy of parenting being like a deep tissue massage. If you resist, you're just in agony.
You're fighting it the whole time. But the good news is that unavoidable pressure, it crushes your false identity.
Wow.
It gets you to what you truly are, the part of you that can't be destroyed by the pressure. And this whole shift requires understanding what your emotional signals are actually telling you. Take something like depression. Intellectually, it's that extreme negative self-talk. But emotionally, it's often just repressed anger and repressed sadness. Your nervous system is constantly under attack from the inside.
So the attack is coming from your own unexpressed emotions. So what's the cure?
You have to lean in with a really deep curiosity. That depression, that anxiety, it represents all the parts of you that it was never safe to be.
The emotions and thoughts you had to suppress as a kid.
Right, and that deep wondering about yourself,
Yeah.
listening to those unheard parts, that's how you reparent yourself. You make it safe to be who you are now.
The goal is to move from I have to do something to be worthy to just I am worthy, I am lovable.
And that fear of leaning in, it needs to hear, you're cool the way you are, I got you, from the inside. There's this beautiful story in the sources about a Quaker man. All his friends were giving him advice on how to improve himself, which just fed that voice in his head saying, something is wrong with me. But one friend, every Tuesday, would just come over and wash his feet. No words, no advice, just an act of service that demonstrated unconditional worthiness.
That's so powerful. So how do we know in our day-to-day lives when we're avoiding emotion? What are the signs?
There are 3 huge smoke signals. Number 1 is looping thoughts. Endless overthinking or rumination. You're trying to solve an emotional problem with your brain. It never works.
And number 2,
Binary decisions. Black or white thinking. I'm either all good or all bad. This is perfect or a disaster. That kind of rigid thinking is just unexpressed fear.
and the third one is harsh judgments of others.
Yes, you criticize other people most fiercely for the very things you're avoiding in yourself.
And the way to break that cycle is to ask that key question. If I couldn't feel this judgment right now, what would I have to feel?
Exactly. You might find it's actually jealousy of their success or shame about not promoting yourself. And once you find the real feeling, the judgment just dissolves.
And to stop the rumination, you have to express the emotion.
But, and this is key, not at people, overthinking is just an attempt to avoid a feeling. If you can express it safely, clarity comes almost immediately.
So we've talked about acceptance,
Yep.
but sometimes we need a more active catalyst for change. And the sources say that catalyst can be our most misunderstood emotion, anger.
Right, anger gets such a bad rap. But healthy, fluid anger has a very clear function. It's a cause for action and a cause for boundaries.
It's a signal that you care about something you're not standing up for.
Precisely. It's a signal, not a weapon. But as kids, we learn very quickly to transmute that anger into sadness.
Why do we do that?
Because sadness is pro-social. It makes people want to take care of you. Anger is seen as antisocial. It makes people run away. So we suppress the anger and perform sadness to survive.
And this leads us straight into boundaries,
Yeah.
which are so often misunderstood and honestly weaponized.
And the material draws this life-changing line between a power struggle and a true boundary.
Okay, so a power struggle is telling someone else what they must do.
Right. You need to stop yelling. You're trying to control them, driven by your own fear and shame. You're just passing the shame hot potato.
But a true boundary is all about stating what you will do.
Yes, it's always about you. Every time you raise your voice, I'm going to leave the house. I'll be back in 20 minutes. You get to choose for yourself. It's an act of self-love, not control.
And the most fascinating part is the effect that has. It actually opens your heart to the other person.
Because you no longer see them as your oppressor. You know you can take care of yourself, so the internal war stops and compassion can come back in.
And those boundaries can change over time.
They soften. They evolve as you realize you're less oppressed than you thought. The example they give is a boundary shifting from "I won't be around you if you're drinking" to the more fluid "I won't be around you if you treat me like this."
You realize the problem isn't the substance, it's the interaction. And you have the power to protect yourself from that.
So let's talk about the engine that gets a lot of people to external success in the first place.
Yeah.
The compensatory mechanism.
Right. What you are on the outside, successful, beautiful, smart, is often this huge inversion of what you're terrified of being on the inside.
Failure, ugly, stupid.
So the high achiever is secretly terrified of being ordinary, and their whole life becomes a defense against that fear. But the achievements don't fix the core issue.
Never. And this connects to what the sources call unteachable lessons. Things like fame won't fix your self-worth or money won't make you happy.
They're cliches.
They're total cliches. But when someone realizes them personally, they proclaim it with this grand ceremony like it's a brand new discovery. You just have to experience it for yourself.
Which brings us to what actually drives real, efficient change. If compensation is driven by fear, what's the alternative?
The sources say genuine change comes not from forcing yourself with shoulds, which they call dirty fuel, but from listening to your wants and desires. That's efficient fuel.
Shoulds are exhausting because they're fueled by shame and fear.
Exactly. Wants are self-sustaining. So the actionable step is to always find the want that's hiding underneath the should. You think, I should work out.
But the want underneath is, I want to feel healthy, or I want to feel attractive.
Right. And that opens up your options. It's not just the gym anymore. It could be pickleball or salsa dancing. It connects the action to an internal reward.
And when you finally stop avoiding those few really hard actions, you get what's called the sniper rifle effect.
Yes. The life you actually want is usually on the other side of just a few hard decisions. Once you take that first scary action, fire someone, set a firm boundary, you realize you survived.
And that gives you the momentum to knock down the other dominoes really quickly.
It leads to this rapid streak of necessary actions.
So what's the ultimate goal here? It's moving past that false choice between being ruthless and getting things done on one hand, or open-hearted and gentle on the other.
Exactly. The most effective people are both. The source gives this great example of a producer who ruthlessly optimized his tour schedule.
Making sure they booked him in venues just 15 minutes from his house.
Right. Not because he was being ruthless to his staff, but because he was being ruthlessly committed to prioritizing his son. That deep congruence between action and value, that's genuine, effective openness. So this deep dive, we've really explored that painful cycle of living with a closed heart, the ways we self-sabotage.
And that critical mechanism for drawing boundaries that actually increase love instead of friction.
And remember, most relationship conflicts really just boil down to one of three things.
I don't feel seen, I'm trying to change you, or I need to defend myself.
And if you can just shift one of those by choosing vulnerability or acceptance or a real boundary, you break the whole cycle. You stop passing that shame hot potato.
And that gets us to the core takeaway about change, doesn't it? The most efficient way to change is often not through more speed or more effort.
It's through awareness.
Yeah.
If you're just focused on efficiency without awareness, you're just finding a faster way to burn yourself out doing the wrong things.
Instead, you have to identify the one or two most important things, the dominoes, that will cause a cascade of positive change when they fall.
You focus all your energy there, even if it means letting other less important areas be chaotic for a little while.
So the final thought to leave you with is this.
What is your single most important domino right now? The one fear or the one suppressed want that if you finally acted on it would make everything else just a little bit easier.